What if everything you assumed about someone was completely wrong? At a private charity dinner in Manhattan, attended by New York's wealthiest philanthropists, a 7-year-old girl named Lily stood on stage to accept a scholarship award. As the applause died down and cameras flashed, she was asked to say a few words. Her voice, small and trembling, cut through the elegant ballroom. "I just want to say, I miss my mom." The room froze. Guests exchanged knowing, sympathetic glances. They'd all read her file. They knew her story, or at least they thought they did. Lily was an orphan, raised by her elderly grandmother after a tragedy. That's what everyone believed. But one man in the audience, billionaire tech entrepreneur Marcus Chen, went pale. Because Marcus knew something no one else in that room knew. And in the next 60 seconds, he would reveal a truth so shocking that it would expose not just one lie, but an entire system built on assumptions we make about poverty, family, and who deserves our help. Stay with me, because this story will fundamentally challenge how you see the world. Lily's scholarship application told a heartbreaking tale. Mother deceased. Father unknown. Raised by her 72-year-old grandmother, Grace, in a cramped apartment in the Bronx. The application included Grace's medical records showing advanced arthritis and a fixed income of just $1,100 per month. The scholarship committee had been moved to tears by the accompanying essay, presumably written by Lily with Grace's help, describing their struggles and Lily's dreams of becoming a doctor to help people like her grandmother. It was the perfect poverty narrative: sympathetic victims, clear need, inspirational resilience. The committee approved the full scholarship unanimously. Local news covered the story. Social media celebrated this feel-good moment of generosity toward a deserving child, but Marcus Chen, sitting at table 7, felt his stomach turn as he listened to Lily's acceptance speech. He'd been personally invited to this event by the Scholarship Foundation's director, who knew Marcus had a soft spot for educational causes. As Lily spoke about missing her mother and thanking her grandmother for sacrifices, Marcus's mind raced through calculations that didn't add up. He'd met Lily before, 3 months earlier, under very different circumstances. She'd been with a woman who introduced herself as her mother, very much alive, outside his office building. They'd been asking for spare change, and something about their interaction had struck Marcus as rehearsed. He'd given them $20 but couldn't shake a nagging feeling that he'd witnessed a performance rather than genuine need. Now, seeing Lily on this stage, accepting a scholarship based on being effectively orphaned, Marcus faced a crisis of conscience. Speaking up would create a scandal and potentially humiliate a child in front of hundreds of people. Staying silent would mean allowing fraud to succeed, taking resources from children who genuinely needed them. The scholarship was worth $150,000 over 6 years, covering private school tuition, supplies, and enrichment programs. If Lily's mother was alive and her situation fabricated, this was more than a white lie, it was systematic deception. Marcus made his decision. As the applause began for Lily's speech, he stood up and asked for the microphone. The foundation director looked confused but handed it over, likely expecting Marcus to announce a matching donation. Instead, Marcus said 5 words that detonated the evening: "I need to tell the truth." Marcus's voice carried across the silent ballroom as he addressed Lily directly, keeping his tone gentle despite the bombshell he was about to drop. "Lily, I met you and your mother 3 months ago on 5th Avenue. She was with you, asking for money. She told me you were hungry and needed help. Your mother is alive, isn't she?" The room erupted in gasps and confused murmuring. Lily's face crumbled, and she began crying in earnest now, not the composed tears of gratitude but the panicked sobs of someone whose world is collapsing. On the side of the stage, an older woman who'd been introduced as Grace rushed forward, but something about her movement seemed off to Marcus. She was sprightly, energetic, none of the severe arthritis described in medical documents. What unfolded over the next 20 minutes was a masterclass in deception unraveling. When pressed by the scholarship director and eventually by security, the truth emerged piece by piece. Lily's mother, Rachel, was indeed alive. She and Grace, who was not disabled at all, had developed an elaborate scheme to secure benefits, donations, and now scholarships by fabricating a tragic backstory. Rachel would disappear during official meetings and applications, with Grace posing as the sole guardian. They'd obtained fraudulent medical records showing Grace's supposed disabilities. The essay had been carefully crafted to hit every emotional note that charity evaluators respond to. They'd successfully scammed various organizations out of an estimated $80,000 over 3 years, not counting services and benefits. The scholarship was meant to be their biggest score yet. The immediate reaction in the room was anger and betrayal. Donors felt manipulated. The scholarship committee felt humiliated. Several people demanded prosecution. But Marcus did something unexpected. After the security team had taken statements and the evening dissolved into chaos, he asked to speak with Rachel privately. Against the advice of the foundation's lawyers, Rachel agreed, perhaps hoping Marcus's obvious wealth meant a chance to negotiate her way out of trouble. What Marcus told her would become the second shock of the evening, because his interest wasn't in punishment. It was in understanding why an apparently capable woman with a bright child would resort to fraud instead of legitimate assistance. And Rachel's answer would expose failures far more significant than her deception. Rachel's story, once she finally told the truth, revealed a brutal reality about American poverty that most wealthy donors never see. She was a single mother working 2 jobs, morning shifts at a hospital cafeteria and evening shifts cleaning office buildings. Combined, she earned $28,000 per year, enough to disqualify her family from most assistance programs but nowhere near enough to actually survive in New York City. Her rent alone consumed $1,600 monthly. After utilities, transportation, and food, there was nothing left. She couldn't afford childcare, so Lily stayed with Grace, Rachel's mother, who was healthy but whose fixed income couldn't stretch to support both of them. Rachel worked herself to exhaustion but remained trapped in a poverty that was invisible to support systems designed to help only the most destitute. Here's where the system's cruelty became clear: when Rachel had applied for legitimate assistance, reduced childcare costs, food support, housing subsidies, she was repeatedly denied because she earned too much. But she earned too little to actually afford life. This gap, sometimes called the benefits cliff, affects millions of working poor Americans. Studies show that a single parent with 1 child can actually lose money by accepting a raise because losing benefits costs more than the additional income provides. Rachel had tried to play by the rules. She'd worked harder, taken extra shifts, applied for every legitimate program. And she'd watched her daughter go hungry, wear secondhand clothes with holes, and miss educational opportunities because working full-time wasn't enough. So she made a choice: she'd game a system that was already gaming her. Marcus listened to Rachel's explanation with a growing sense of recognition. He'd built his fortune in tech by identifying system failures and creating solutions. What he was hearing wasn't a justification for fraud, it was a case study in catastrophic policy design. Research from the Urban Institute confirms Rachel's experience. Nearly 50 million Americans live in households that earn too much for assistance but not enough to meet basic needs. They work full-time, often multiple jobs, yet remain perpetually on the edge of crisis. One medical emergency, one car breakdown, one unexpected expense pushes them into catastrophe. Meanwhile, charitable systems often reinforce these failures by designing aid around narratives of total destitution rather than the messy reality of working poverty. Rachel had learned that being employed and trying hard made her ineligible for help, but being helpless opened doors. Marcus asked Rachel a direct question: if you had access to legitimate support that actually covered your needs, would you have lied? Rachel's answer was immediate: I never wanted to lie. I wanted to work and provide for my daughter honestly. But the system makes honest survival impossible. Marcus believed her, not because he was naive, but because the data supported her claim. He'd recently funded research into poverty solutions and had learned that the vast majority of people want to work and support themselves if given genuine opportunity. The problem isn't character, it's structure. Systems designed to help often punish people for trying to escape poverty, creating perverse incentives where appearing hopeless becomes a survival strategy. Marcus made an unusual proposal to the Scholarship Foundation director and the assembled donors. Rather than press charges against Rachel, which would accomplish nothing except potentially separating Lily from her mother through incarceration, he wanted to use this moment as a catalyst for change. He would personally fund Lily's education, not through the scholarship she'd fraudulently obtained, but through direct support with complete transparency about her actual circumstances. More significantly, he wanted to create a new pilot program specifically designed for working poor families like Rachel's, who fell through the gaps in existing assistance. The program would provide childcare subsidies, educational support, job training, and crucially, wouldn't disappear when recipients started earning more. It would taper support gradually, eliminating the benefits cliff that trapped families in poverty. The response in the room was mixed. Some donors were outraged, feeling Marcus was rewarding fraud. Others were intrigued by his reframing of the problem. One woman, a foundation executive, stood and shared that she'd been a working poor single mother 20 years earlier and had faced the exact same impossible choices Rachel described. She'd been fortunate enough to have family support that kept her from Rachel's desperation, but she understood how easily circumstance could have led her down the same path. Her testimony shifted the room's energy from anger to uncomfortable recognition. These weren't bad people or good people in a simple moral tale. These were human beings trapped in a system designed with assumptions that didn't match reality, all trying to survive the best way they knew how. Marcus's pilot program launched 6 months later with funding from donors who'd been at that charity dinner. Rachel was the first participant, along with 15 other working poor families. The program was radically different from traditional assistance. It assumed participants were competent, capable people who needed resources and opportunities, not rescue and supervision. Rachel received subsidized childcare, allowing her to take a better-paying single job instead of working 2 exhausting shifts. She enrolled in a nursing certification program that Marcus's company partnered with a local college to provide. Most importantly, the support was designed to grow with her success rather than punish it. As her income increased, benefits reduced slowly and predictably, ensuring she was always better off earning more. Lily stayed in her regular public school but received tutoring and enrichment programs. More valuable than any academic support was the therapy both she and Rachel attended to process the trauma of their years in desperate poverty and the shame of what they'd done to survive it. Rachel's progress was remarkable not because she suddenly became capable, she'd always been capable, but because she finally had resources matching her effort. Within 18 months, she completed her nursing certification and secured a job paying $52,000 annually. For the first time in Lily's life, they had stability. They moved to a better apartment. Lily joined after-school activities. Rachel had time to actually be a mother instead of just a survival machine. The transformation wasn't magic, it was what happens when you remove systemic barriers from determined people. The program's success caught attention from policy researchers and other philanthropists. Of the 16 families in the pilot, 14 achieved significant economic stability within 2 years. The cost per family was $35,000 annually for 2 years, far less than the social costs of keeping families trapped in crisis. Marcus began speaking publicly about what he'd learned, framing it not as charity but as investment in human potential that society was systematically wasting. He shared Rachel's story, with her permission, not to humiliate her but to illustrate how poverty creates impossible choices that we then judge from positions of privilege. He challenged other wealthy individuals to move beyond feel-good charity toward structural solutions that actually worked. 3 years after that shocking charity dinner, Rachel and Marcus occasionally speak at conferences together, an unlikely partnership that tells a complicated story about poverty, morality, and social responsibility. Rachel is always honest about what she did. I committed fraud. I lied repeatedly. I'm not proud of it. But she follows with context that challenges audiences. I also loved my daughter and would do anything to give her a chance at life. The system forced me to choose between honesty and my child's survival. I chose my child. Would you have done differently? Most people, when truly honest with themselves, admit they wouldn't have. And that admission is the beginning of understanding why poverty persists despite our wealth and good intentions. Lily is 10 now, thriving in school, with dreams that seem achievable rather than desperately impossible. She knows her mother's history, both the struggles and the deceptions. When asked how she feels about what happened, she said something profound: "I used to wish my mom had really died like we said in the scholarship application, because then the story would be true and I wouldn't feel guilty. But now I'm glad she's alive and I understand why she did what she did." Sometimes the system makes people choose between being honest and being fed. That's not their fault. From the mouth of a child came wisdom that most adults struggle to accept. Moral judgment without understanding context is just cruelty dressed as righteousness. Here's the uncomfortable truth this story reveals: we live in a society that claims to value hard work but structurally punishes people who work hard yet remain poor. We celebrate individual effort but ignore systemic barriers. We design charity to feel good for donors rather than to actually solve problems for recipients. We judge people for desperate choices while maintaining systems that create desperation. Rachel's fraud was wrong, but it was a symptom of deeper wrongs that we're all responsible for. Every time we vote for policies that gut support for working families, every time we accept systems that trap people in poverty, every time we judge someone's survival strategies from our position of security, we participate in the conditions that made Rachel's choice seem necessary. Marcus has since committed $50 million to expanding his pilot program and advocating for policy changes that eliminate benefits cliffs. He's partnered with organizations working on guaranteed income pilots, childcare reform, and wage policies that actually allow full-time work to support families. But his biggest contribution might be reframing how we think about poverty and morality. We ask poor people to be better, more honest, more grateful, more resilient than we'd be in their position, Marcus said in a recent interview. We demand superhuman virtue from people in subhuman conditions. That's not justice. That's just hypocrisy with good PR. If this story challenged your assumptions, hit that like button and share it with someone who needs to hear it. Drop a comment about a time you had to choose between rules and survival, or when you judged someone's choices before understanding their context. Subscribe to join a community committed to understanding the complexity of poverty rather than simplifying it into moral tales. And here's my challenge: the next time you encounter someone asking for help, or hear about benefit fraud, or meet someone trapped in working poverty, pause before judging. Ask yourself what choices you'd make with their options. Because the line between Rachel and any of us is thinner than we'd like to believe. It's just a few accidents of birth, a couple of bad breaks, some missing safety nets. The question isn't whether poor people deserve our help. It's whether we deserve to live in a society where hard work and human dignity aren't mutually exclusive.